Mr. Broerman.
Mr. Chair, fellow county commissioners, Chuck Broerman, El Paso County Clerk and Recorder, thank you for giving me the opportunity. I come before you periodically, give you an update on our performance of our office, things that are coming up, talk about our performance of our office to our citizens and opportunities that we have to do better. So I do want to comment shortly. You'll be on the consent calendar. There's a number of intergovernmental agreements. We are the general contractor, so to speak, when we conduct elections. Our office, I am the chief election officer, and we coordinate with the various municipalities, special districts, school districts. We enter into an agreement that is vetted with the county attorney's office on what our responsibilities are to them and what theirs are to us in order to ensure fair, accurate, transparent elections. So that is in your packet for consent. I would ask for your approval on that. So if I can move to the first slide. So I'll run through this quickly because I know you've got a very busy day, but I'll entertain questions as we go through. So something that's been very popular among our citizens is our kiosks. There shows from its inception in September of 17 the number of transactions each month, and you can see that the popularity continues to grow. And that is a great resource where people can come in and not have to wait in our office or use our 24/7 kiosk to do a transaction outside of normal business hours. We hit a peak last summer right after we converted the state did from the C-Stars old system that was 35 years old to the new Drive system. Due to some technical issues that the state had, we saw wait times get in our office rather large. It was not unusual to see 2 or 3 hours. That precipitated a lot of citizens utilizing the kiosk rather than that in-person, person-to-person transaction. So you saw a little bit of a peak there. Actually, I like to say we kind of forced our citizens to go through that because it was essential for our more complex transactions to be conducted. But as you can see, it's an ever-increasing transaction type that people are utilizing. We lead by far the rest of the state in utilization of kiosks. So since 2017, we've had 95,000 people that have utilized the kiosk. The public information officer, their office tells us that it's one of the more popular clicks on their website, with over 30,000 people having viewed how to utilize the kiosk. And some good news, we have 2 additional locations. We have entered into a partnership with King Soopers to start installing additional ones that would be 24/7. So, you know, in 3 of our 4 offices, you have to come into our lobby. The 4th one at Union Town Center, you can do 24/7, but to introduce this option to other places in the community, we are working with King Soopers to do that. Our title backlogs. So this is transactions that citizens, when they buy a new vehicle or a used vehicle, the dealership processes that paperwork, does the financing, and then sends it to us. And you see that peak that we saw about a year ago with 2 hailstorms, and with the advent of the Drives project, we saw a peak on that, but we have, as you can see, demonstrated that we are driving that down, though we are starting to see a slight uptick. And I'll talk a little bit more about the underlying reason for that. Total fees collected. So with the red hot economy, people are buying more and more vehicles, more expensive vehicles. This is what, as of year to date, this comparison to previous years, the amount of revenue that's come into our office that we collect on as taxes and fees. Now, we retain just a portion of that. A majority of that goes to the state, to municipalities, to special district schools, and the like. So we retain a portion of that, about 8.7% of that. So just shows you the trend that is on the positive swing, and it's kind of a predictor of what our economy is like, as you can probably see every day. Dealer desk wait time. So dealerships will bring transactions to our desk, and they're very important folks for us to process those for dealers. Usually those are transactions that need to be conducted in a quick manner, a timely manner, quick turnaround time. The blue is pre-drives, and the red is since about November of last year. After we had about 90 days of transactions under our belt, after we had hundreds and thousands of transactions by each individual technician, we saw a stair-step decrease in the amount of processing time where we've gotten better. So you can see that we are working very hard to service our dealerships here in El Paso County. Express wait times went down after we got through that 90-day period with drives. We're seeing a slight rise. Part of that is twofold. One is we've had some retention issues with staffing. With the red-hot economy, people have chosen other forms of employment. We're also while more people utilize the kiosks, transactions that are on the counter takes 4, 5, 6 minutes to do. That's also bundled with handicap placards, which tend to take about 10 minutes. So the mix is now more handicap placards and plates that are being done as an express transaction. So they take a little bit of time. So the mix just changed. So that's kind of why we see that slight uptick, because of some retention within our staff, and then also with the mix of what comprises an express transaction. Driver's license wait times, we have seen recently an uptick, and there again, it's with retaining staff and keeping them here, and then training new technicians. Title wait times, after seeing a sharp decrease from this fall, we are starting to see that trend up as far as wait times for our citizens. Military wait times, though, we put an emphasis on that and giving our servicemen and women the best possible service. So we see that we still are striving very good to keep our military wait times low. But it's also due in part to, if you look at Fort Carson, our number of transactions there, the number has dropped, and that's because we have 2 brigades that are overseas. So that is that volume, that population of those individuals renewing plates. Now they'll come back here in the months coming up, so we'll see an uptick there. But that's part driven by our delivery of our service, but also the reduction in volume because we have servicemen and women deployed overseas. Our Saturday office hours offering is still very popular with a little over 500 transactions on any given day. And our wait times in that area, we work real hard to keep those people moving through quickly to process those transactions. Any questions in motor vehicle before I give an update on elections?
I think we're good.
Okay. All right, elections. So with the passage of House Bill 1278, there's some additional requirements on our office. The state of Colorado and the Secretary of State's office offered funding for a number of these things. We have to acquire 16 more additional drop boxes. We have them ordered. We have been working with various entities, City of Colorado Springs, other groups to put placement of those, so we are busily working on that, and also the additional 4 voter service and polling centers. We have a couple of recalls that are out there, and people have asked, well, what is the particulars on that? You know, it's a hypothetical situation as to whether or not these recalls will come to fruition, and also the timing of those. If they were an election that was conducted at a non-standard time, not during a primary or general election or coordinated election, they could run as much as $4 per person. If they are coordinated with possibly the presidential primary we have in March, or if people turn them in really quickly here, that we could possibly, though it's an outside chance, this November. Depending on that process of turning in those signatures, the Secretary of State validating, there's a protest phase, there's some legal phases where those can be challenged, and then the governor has a time period of 30 to 60 days to set that. So based on all those things, it could run anywhere from a couple bucks to up to $4 per voter. So it's hard to speculate, but that's kind of the general sense of what that might entail for our office, and that would be an additional election over and above the 4 that we are going to be conducting in the next many months. Entities that are participating this November, I have a list of various entities that have indicated that they're going to be participating. You can see from the chart, there's a number of Tabor questions. Some of the districts have candidate elections that they will be having November, and then some other questions based on their charter or rule changes that they're making in their entities. List of school districts that have indicated that they're going to have an item on the ballot. Candidates, almost all of them have candidates up for election, and several have Tabor questions. Any questions? And then we'll have
hang on one sec, Commissioner Vanderwerf.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. For the, you may have said it, and I just want to make sure I heard it correctly. For the recalls that were mentioned at $4 per voter,
yep.
That is done outside of the cycle, right, of November?
It could very well be. It's likely to be at this point.
Okay, so done out of the cycle, that's why it's this cost per voter. If it's done in cycle, it's a different cost?
Yeah, because you're now spreading that cost of that election over a larger universe of entities that are participating.
Okay, and that would be why perhaps not listed on here is the other measure, petition to deal with the Electoral College, because that, I think, does go on the November.
That'll be November 2020.
And that still has to be certified, I believe, but
yes.
But I just wanted to confirm why I didn't see it here. Now I know. Thank you.
That's a 2020 election.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Two statewide initiatives that the state has on the ballot. So a permanent retention of all Tabor funds for education and transportation. Proposition CC will be on this November's election, and then Proposition DD, which, based on the Supreme Court ruling of about a year ago, that allows states to authorize and tax sports betting. There's a number of states, I think I read 17, that have already taken action, and this is an item to propose that here in this November election. Timeline, I will give you greater detail and fidelity when we get closer, but so we have the last day that entities can indicate to us that they're participating in the November election. They have to return their IGs to us by August 26th. Military and overseas ballots, UACAVA, those are required by federal law to be out 45 days ahead of time, so we will be sending them out on or before September 20. First week in October, we'll be doing our logic and accuracy test to make sure that all our equipment is tallying the votes correctly, putting it right in the right bucket, whether it was for or against, or for a particular candidate A or candidate B, and then also to ensure to the public that there's no outside influence in our elections. Ballots will be mailed October 11th, which we hope to mail those out the Friday before Columbus Day, which under the changes in the law allows us to send it out a couple days earlier than what we had done in the past. We used to send it out around the Columbus Day holiday. We're now going to be able to do that in advance of that date. We'll have our voter service and polling centers. We'll have our phase 1, where we open up at the Citizen Service Center on October 13th. We'll open up our 4 motor vehicle branch offices on October 28th. And then our final phase, the last 2 days of the election, the Town of Monument and Victory World Outreach Center. And then after the election, the week of November 15th, we'll be conducting our risk limiting audit, where we verify to the public that not only was our equipment accurate and fair before the election, that it still is correct, and the outcome that we had tallied was correct after the election. Key dates coming up in 2020, presidential primary March 3rd, the political party primaries June 30th, presidential election November 3rd. So we will have 4 elections in a span of about 12 months. So we'll have a very busy year. The challenges, as I spoke early in motor vehicle, is motor vehicle recruitment of folks, staff. We're working aggressively with Andrea McGee and the HR department to get creative about how we find people in a tough labor market and how we retain them. And then the challenges with House Bill 1278 is the additional voter service and polling center requirements. The additional drop boxes requires additional election judges, which were a difficulty for most counties last election. We're going to work really aggressively to find and identify so that we have a proper number of folks to conduct these elections. And with, some other neat things. So we've had some outreach we've done in the last few months. So working with the World Affairs Council, we hosted a group from Africa to discuss elections and accessibility for voters that are handicapped. We worked with the Peak Military Care Network to talk about ways that we can do even better for our men and women in uniform and their families and servicing their needs that require our attention out of our office. We met with the El Paso County Democrat Party to talk about upcoming election. We have a meeting scheduled with their counterparts, the Republican Party, coming up soon. We met with UCCS and Pikes Peak Community College about the implementation of the voter service and polling center requirement on campuses. We have voter drives that we are conducting at our motor vehicle offices this week. We had meetings with the City of Colorado Springs to work on potential sites for our secure 24-hour drop boxes that we are required by law. And here are some pictures for your enjoyment with the various groups that we met, the World Affairs Council, the Democrat Party here locally, and the Military Care Network. So now, any questions?
Commissioner Vanderwerf.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we do have a couple of items on the consent calendar, and I had some questions about them, but it's a real simple question. There's 4 items, and they are intergovernmental agreements with different various public agencies. As you mentioned, you act as a general contractor and these kinds of things. My question, though, is I'm just not recalling, and you can perhaps clarify this for me. Do we do these every time for an upcoming election, so they have to be renegotiated every time, or do they last a certain period of time? And do we have, are these, if we do it, have to do it every time, are these 4 inclusive of all people that you provide support to, or all public agencies you provide support to?
Commissioner Van Wert, they are election specific because sometimes things change from the standpoint of statute that we have to integrate into them. Sometimes there's things that we see is a little bit better way that we can deliver elections. There's some preferences that various entities might have that we work to see if we can get agreement in performing them. So they're pretty much boilerplate, but each one's, some of them have a little bit of a twist or of a turn that makes it different or unique to that, but 98, 99% of them is standard boilerplate, and we do have to do that for every single election.
Okay. And I understand you have to, per statute, it's 16 or 17, I forget the number exactly, of ballot boxes that have to be added, but doing those ballot boxes is not trivial. I believe you had mentioned that before. You've got to find the right place with the right lighting, with the right security. You have to hire staff to come and pick up the ballots, and so it becomes a non-trivial event.
It is not trivial. It takes a lot of planning and foresight. You don't want to make a situation tough for our voters. So yes, we have to have lighting so it's secure and so that we can videotape. It's required by law that we videotape that. We want to make sure that there's no vandalism or anything untoward happening. We want to be good stewards of the property so that those entities that allow us to have a drop box, that they'll want to allow us to do it the next election. We want to be considerate of traffic flow, traffic patterns. Some of our busiest boxes, like at Citizen Service Center and Pikes Peak Library, the last couple hours, it extends onto the city streets, and we get assistance from Colorado Springs Police Department and the Sheriff Department to help with traffic mitigation there. So we think about those things. We try to do our best, and when not, we work to try and minimize it so that people can vote and it doesn't impact the rest of the citizens.
Great, thank you. And I know you have a great track record about minimizing wait times for people that are voting. So keep doing that. Appreciate adding the ballot boxes, and thanks for the response.
Thank you. Yeah, and we do a lot to make sure our wait times for our citizens is low. But really, the gating factor, and I know I mentioned this before, and I mentioned it during testimony for 1278, is the gating factor as to why people have to wait on election day. We are open for 21, a period of time before that, so people have plenty of opportunity. But people are a little reticent. They want to get more information. They wait until that last day. But also, it's the ability for the score system, the software application from the Secretary of State's office to process people in a timely manner. It can take 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes to process a voter, when other states like Ohio and Florida, and Florida's not an entity that, it's had its challenges, they can process a voter in 90 seconds, and I think we need to be there in order to get people through so they don't have to wait.
Any other questions for the clerk and recorder? All right, seeing none, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Are there any other elected officials in the audience that would like to comment on an agenda or on an item that's not on the agenda? All right, seeing none, we're going to move on. We're going to skip around a little bit here. I know we've got a lot of folks that need to get back to work, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to call item 9 next, and then once we're done with item 9, we're going to call item 13A. So you can be a little bit more prepared for that. So, Madam County